The darkness of space split open like a wound. Massive ships pushed through the tear in reality, their hulls gleaming with an unnatural shine. These were not machines made of metal and circuits. They were living things, bred for war and shaped by centuries of genetic tampering. Commander Vexith stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his yellow eyes scanning the star system before them. His scaled skin rippled with excitement as data flowed across the organic displays growing from the ship's walls. Another system, another species to hunt. The Kathvar had been doing this for 3,000 years. They moved from star to star, finding worlds with intelligent life. They studied these species for a few cycles, learning their weaknesses. Then came the hunt. It always ended the same way, with the prey species extinct and the Kathvar moving on to find new targets. "Report," Vexith hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air. Sub-Commander Zelketh, his second-in-command, approached with quick steps. Her claws clicked against the living floor of the bridge. "The third planet shows signs of advanced life, Commander. They call themselves humans. They have cities, technology, weapons, but nothing that should trouble us." Vexith studied the images flowing across the displays. Blue and green world, billions of the soft-skinned creatures moving across its surface. He could see their cities from space, sprawling things made of stone and metal. Primitive, but showing some intelligence. "Their technology level?" he asked. "Early space age. They have achieved flight beyond their atmosphere, but have not mastered faster than light travel. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and some energy weapons. No shield technology detected. Perfect." Vex felt his hunting instincts wake up. These humans looked weak. No natural armor, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. Their skin was soft and easily damaged. They would make good sport. "Begin the hunt," he ordered. The Kathvar fleet moved toward Earth like a pack of predators approaching wounded prey. Their bioships pulsed with life, weapons growing from their hulls like thorns. The hunt was about to begin. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working late in her laboratory when the first warnings came through. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied the possibility of alien life. For years, she had wondered what would happen if humanity ever met another intelligent species. She had hoped for peaceful contact, for learning and sharing knowledge. The alarms that filled her lab told her that her hopes had been naive. "All personnel, this is not a drill," came the voice over the emergency broadcast system. "Unknown objects have appeared in Earth orbit. Military forces are responding. Civilian populations in major cities should seek shelter immediately." Sarah ran to the window. In the night sky above her city, she could see them. Ships. Massive alien ships hanging in the darkness like predators waiting to strike. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their surfaces seeming to move and pulse with life. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues around the world. Similar ships were appearing over every major city on Earth. London, New York, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. All of them now had alien vessels hanging overhead like swords waiting to fall. The first attack came at dawn. Sarah watched from her window as beams of light fell from the ships above. Where they touched the city, buildings simply disappeared. Not destroyed, dissolved. The beams seemed to unmake matter itself, leaving behind only empty air and dust. But the aliens were not trying to destroy everything. Sarah realized they were being surgical in their strikes. They hit military bases, government buildings, communication centers. They were cutting off humanity's ability to fight back in an organized way. Within hours, the world's military forces were scattered and confused. The alien ships seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage to human coordination efforts. It was like they had studied humanity for years before attacking. Then came the landing ships. Sarah watched smaller vessels drop from the main fleet like seeds falling from a tree. They landed in the ruins of the city, and from them came the hunters themselves. The first time Sarah saw a Kathvar, she understood why they were so confident. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in scales that seemed to shift color to match its surroundings. Its arms ended in claws that could cut through steel, and its mouth was full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. When it moved, it flowed like liquid death, but what frightened Sarah most was the intelligence in its yellow eyes. This was not a mindless beast. This was a thinking predator that had planned this attack with care. The Kathvar hunting parties moved through the ruined city like wolves through a flock of sheep. They carried weapons that seemed to be part technology, part living creature. When they fired, the weapons screamed like wounded animals, But something unexpected happened in those first days of the invasion. The humans did not simply run and hide as the Kathvar expected. Instead, they began to fight back. Captain Marcus Rivera had been leading a squad of Marines when the attacks began. His base had been one of the first targets hit, but Rivera and his men had survived in underground bunkers. As the aliens moved through the city above, Rivera made a decision that would change everything. "We're going hunting," he told his men. Rivera had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in wars around the world, and he understood something that the aliens did not. When you corner a dangerous animal, it doesn't just run away. It fights back with everything it has. Rivera's squad was one of hundreds around the world that came to the same conclusion. Instead of hiding from the alien hunters, they began to study them. They watched from hiding places, learning how the Kathvar moved, how they hunted, what their weaknesses might be. What they discovered gave them hope. The aliens were incredibly dangerous, but they were also predictable. They had been hunting weak prey for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with prey that fought back intelligently. The first human victory came 3 days after the invasion began. Rivera's squad had been tracking a Kathvar hunting party through the ruins of downtown. The aliens were moving in a pattern, sweeping through buildings looking for human survivors to capture. Rivera split his squad into 3 groups. While one group made noise to attract the aliens' attention, the other 2 moved into position. When the Kathvar hunting party followed the sound, they walked into a trap. The humans had rigged several buildings with explosives. As the aliens entered the kill zone, Rivera gave the signal. The explosions brought down 3 buildings at once, burying the hunting party under tons of rubble. When the dust settled, Rivera and his men moved in to check for survivors. They found 2 Kathvar still alive, trapped under the debris. The aliens looked up at the humans with something Rivera had never expected to see in the eyes of such dangerous predators: fear. Word of Rivera's success spread quickly through the underground networks that had formed among the human survivors. Other groups began to copy his tactics, using the aliens' own hunting instincts against them. The Kathvar had expected to find a planet full of easy prey. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that learned from every encounter. Every time a hunting party disappeared, the humans seemed to understand their tactics better. Dr. Chen had joined one of the resistance groups forming in her city. Her knowledge of biology made her valuable in understanding how the aliens functioned. She studied video footage of the Kathvar looking for weaknesses. What she found changed her understanding of what they were facing. These aliens were not just natural predators. They had been changed, modified by technology and genetic engineering to be perfect hunters. Every part of their bodies was designed for killing, but perfect hunters had a weakness. They had become too specialized. They could only think like predators, only see the world through the eyes of creatures that hunted weaker prey. "They don't understand us," Chen explained to the resistance leaders. "They've been hunting species that run and hide when attacked. They don't know how to deal with prey that studies them back, that learns their patterns and uses them against them." This understanding spread through the human resistance like wildfire. Instead of simply trying to survive, the humans began to actively hunt their hunters. Commander Vexith received the first reports of missing hunting parties with confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Kathvar had never lost entire squads to primitive prey. The humans had no technology that could threaten his warriors. Their weapons were crude, their tactics simple. But the reports kept coming. Hunting parties were disappearing. Others returned with tales of humans who seemed to know exactly where they would be, who set traps that showed an understanding of Kathvar psychology. Vexith ordered larger hunting parties. If the humans wanted to fight, he would show them the true power of the Kathvar. He sent 50 warriors to clear out a human stronghold in what had once been called Seattle. None of them came back. The humans had learned to coordinate their attacks. They used the city's underground tunnels to move unseen. They set traps that used the Kathvar's own senses against them. When the aliens followed their prey into the tunnels, they found themselves in a maze where the humans had every advantage. By the end of the first month, something unprecedented was happening. The Kathvar were beginning to fear going to the surface of the planet they were supposed to be conquering. Rivera stood in what had once been a subway station, now converted into a command center for the human resistance. Around him, men and women from every nation on Earth worked together with a purpose he had never seen before. They had learned to communicate through quantum encrypted networks that the aliens couldn't track. They shared information about Kathvar movements, weaknesses, and tactics. "Status report," Rivera said to his communications officer. "Resistance cells in every major city are reporting successful hunts," came the reply. "The aliens are changing their patterns. They're moving in larger groups, staying closer to their ships. They're acting like prey," Rivera finished. He smiled grimly. "Good. Let them learn what it feels like to be hunted." Dr. Chen looked up from her workstation where she was studying captured Kathvar equipment. "Marcus, I think I've figured out something important. These aliens, they're not just hunters. Hunting is their entire culture, their whole reason for existing. They can't conceive of a world where they're not the apex predator." "What does that mean for us?" "It means we're doing more than just fighting back. We're attacking the foundation of everything they believe about themselves. Every time we kill one of their hunting parties, we're proving that they're not as superior as they thought." Rivera nodded. Around the world, humanity was learning the same lesson. The aliens had made a mistake. They had assumed that because humans looked weak, they were weak. They had not understood that humanity's greatest strength was not physical power, but the ability to adapt, to learn, to change tactics when the old ones stopped working. The Kathvar had spent 3,000 years hunting species that followed predictable patterns. But humans were different. They could become anything they needed to become to survive. And right now they needed to become hunters. As the first month of the invasion ended, the situation was not what anyone had expected. The aliens still controlled Earth's orbit and many of the planet's major cities. But the humans were no longer running and hiding. They were hunting back. Commander Vexith stood on his bridge, staring down at the blue and green world that should have been conquered by now. His hunting parties were requesting support for simple operations that should have been routine. His warriors were reporting that the humans seemed to anticipate their every move. For the first time in his long career, Vexith was beginning to wonder if the Kathvar had finally found prey that could bite back hard enough to hurt them. On the surface of Earth, in hidden bases and underground tunnels, humanity was preparing for a war unlike any they had ever fought. They were learning to hunt creatures that had been perfected for hunting them, and they were getting very good at it. 3 months had passed since the Kathvar arrived at Earth. In those months, everything had changed. The planet's surface was a battlefield, but not the kind the aliens had expected. This was not a war of conquest where one side overwhelmed the other with superior force. This had become a deadly game of cat and mouse, except no one was sure anymore who was the cat and who was the mouse. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been a university laboratory. Now it served as one of humanity's most important research centers. The room was filled with alien technology that human teams had captured from defeated Kathvar hunting parties. Every piece was being studied, taken apart, understood. Sarah held a Kathvar weapon in her hands. The thing was still alive, she realized. It pulsed with a slow heartbeat and was warm to the touch. The aliens didn't just use biotechnology, they were part of it. Their weapons, their ships, even their armor were living creatures bred for specific purposes. "It's incredible," she said to her research partner, Dr. James Harrison. "Everything they use is organic. Their technology is based on evolution and genetic engineering, not manufacturing." James nodded as he examined a piece of Kathvar armor under a microscope. "Which explains why they're so good at hunting. Their equipment literally adapts to their needs. But it also gives us an advantage. How so? Living things can be killed. Living things can get sick. Living things can be turned against their masters if you know how." Sarah smiled. This was exactly the kind of thinking that was helping humanity survive. Instead of trying to fight the aliens with conventional tactics, humans were learning to think differently. They were studying their enemies like scientists, not just soldiers. The research center was connected to a vast network of similar facilities around the world. In hidden bases and underground laboratories, the best minds of humanity were working together to understand the Kathvar. Every captured weapon, every piece of alien equipment, every scrap of information was shared instantly with research teams on every continent. Captain Marcus Rivera entered the laboratory carrying a datapad full of new intelligence. His team had just returned from a successful hunt in the ruins of Chicago. They had managed to capture an entire Kathvar hunting squad alive. "What did you learn from the prisoners?" Sarah asked. Rivera's expression was grim. "More than we wanted to know. The Kathvar aren't just random raiders. They're part of something bigger. They've been doing this for thousands of years, moving from star system to star system, hunting intelligent species to extinction. James looked up from his microscope. How many species have they destroyed? According to our prisoners, they've hunted in over 200 star systems. They've completely destroyed at least 50 intelligent species. The others they've kept alive as breeding stock for future hunts. The room fell silent. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity wasn't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting to avoid becoming another extinct species in the Kathvar's collection of trophies. There's more, Rivera continued. The Kathvar home fleet is massive. What we're facing here is just a small hunting expedition. If they call for reinforcements, then we need to make sure they don't get the chance, Sarah said firmly. How long do we have? Unknown. But our prisoners keep asking when we're going to surrender. They can't understand why we're still fighting. According to them, most species give up after the first few weeks. Dr. Harrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. They clearly haven't studied human history. We have a long tradition of refusing to give up when someone tries to wipe us out. This was true, Sarah realized. Throughout human history, whenever a group had been threatened with extinction, they had found ways to fight back. Sometimes they lost, but they never stopped trying. It was what made humans different from the other species the Kathvar had hunted. The difference was becoming clear in the war itself. While the Kathvar followed the same hunting patterns they had used for millennia, humans were adapting their tactics almost daily. Each engagement taught them something new about their enemies. Each captured piece of technology gave them new weapons to use. Rivera pulled up a holographic map showing Kathvar movements around the globe. Red dots marked known alien positions, while blue areas showed human-controlled territory. What Sarah saw surprised her. We're winning, she said in amazement. In some areas, yes, Rivera confirmed. The aliens still control most of the major cities and all of the orbital space. But look at this. He highlighted sections of the map in green. These are areas where Kathvar hunting parties no longer go. They've learned to avoid them because too many of their people have disappeared there. The green areas were spreading. Human resistance fighters had learned to make certain territories so dangerous for the aliens that they simply stayed away. It was psychological warfare on a planetary scale. The key is that we're not trying to defeat them in open battle, Rivera explained. We're making them afraid to hunt us. Every time they send out a hunting party, they know there's a chance none of them will come back. This strategy was working because it attacked the Kathvar where they were weakest, their psychology. The aliens were predators, but they were used to hunting prey that behaved predictably. Humans were refusing to be predictable. Sarah remembered the early days of the invasion, when people had hidden in basements and subway tunnels, hoping the aliens would pass them by. That hadn't worked. The Kathvar were too good at finding hidden prey, but then someone had gotten the idea to reverse the situation. Instead of hiding from the hunters, humans began hunting them back. The results had been dramatic. Show me the latest engagement reports, Sarah requested. Rivera activated a series of video feeds from resistance cells around the world. Sarah watched in fascination as humans used tactics that would have been impossible just months earlier. In the ruins of London, a team of former SAS soldiers had learned to move through the underground like ghosts. They tracked Kathvar hunting parties for days, learning their patterns before striking with surgical precision. The aliens never knew what hit them. In Tokyo, a group of engineers had figured out how to hack into the aliens' biotechnology. They could turn Kathvar weapons against their owners, or cause alien armor to malfunction at critical moments. In New York, former police officers had organized the survivors into an intelligence network that tracked every alien movement in the city. When a Kathvar hunting party entered an area, they found themselves surrounded by humans who knew exactly where they were and where they were going. But perhaps most impressive was what was happening in the Australian outback. The Aboriginal people there had taught other humans how to become truly invisible in the landscape. They could track aliens across vast distances, strike without warning, and disappear again like they had never been there. The Kathvar are starting to make mistakes, Rivera observed. They're frustrated, angry. They're not used to prey that fights back this effectively. Sarah nodded. She had been studying psychological profiles of captured Kathvar warriors. What she found was troubling for the aliens. Their entire culture was built around being apex predators. Their religion, their social structure, their sense of identity, everything depended on their ability to hunt successfully. But humans were proving that the Kathvar were not invincible. Every successful human attack damaged more than just alien equipment and personnel. It damaged their fundamental belief in their own superiority. We're not just fighting a war, Sarah realized. We're destroying their entire worldview. Dr. Harrison looked up from his work with excitement. Sarah, you need to see this. I've been studying the neural patterns of our Kathvar prisoners. Their brains are actually changing. Sarah hurried over to his workstation. On the screen, she could see brain scans of Kathvar warriors taken at different times during their captivity. When we first captured them, their neural patterns showed typical predator responses: confidence, aggression, dominance. But look at the recent scans. The newer brain images showed different patterns. Areas associated with fear and uncertainty were much more active. The confidence regions had shrunk dramatically. They're developing anxiety disorders, Harrison explained. These are apex predators who have never experienced being prey. The psychological stress is literally rewiring their brains. This discovery was immediately shared with resistance cells around the world. If the Kathvar were becoming psychologically vulnerable, humans could exploit that weakness. Captain Rivera began developing new tactics based on this information. Instead of just killing alien hunting parties, human teams began focusing on psychological warfare. They left messages for the aliens to find, proving that humans were watching them, studying them, planning their deaths. They started taking trophies from defeated Kathvar warriors and displaying them where other aliens would find them. They began stalking individual hunters for weeks, letting them know they were being followed before finally striking. The effect on Kathvar morale was devastating. Hunting parties that had once moved with confidence through human cities now jumped at shadows. They traveled in larger groups, stayed closer to their ships, and avoided areas where humans had been active. But humans were learning to use these defensive behaviors against the aliens as well. Larger groups were easier to track. Predictable routes could be trapped. The more cautious the Kathvar became, the more vulnerable they made themselves to human tactics. 6 months after the invasion began, Commander Vex was receiving reports that would have been unthinkable when he first arrived at Earth. Kathvar warriors were refusing to go on hunting missions. Some had developed what human psychiatrists would recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder. The hunting expedition that was supposed to have conquered Earth in a matter of weeks had become a nightmare that seemed to have no end. Every day brought new reports of missing hunting parties, failed missions, and warriors who could no longer function as effective predators. Vexith called a meeting of his sub-commanders. When they gathered in the bioship's command chamber, he could see the stress in their scaled faces. These were warriors who had participated in the extinction of dozens of species. Now they looked like beaten animals. "Status report," he demanded. Sub-Commander Zalketh spoke first. "Our hunting efficiency has dropped by 70%, Commander. The humans have divided the planet into zones that they control completely. Our warriors are afraid to enter these areas." "Afraid?" Vexith hissed. "Kathvar warriors do not know fear." "They do now," another sub-commander replied quietly. "The humans have taught it to them." The room fell silent. For a species that had defined itself by its ability to inspire fear in others, the admission that they were now the ones experiencing fear was almost incomprehensible. "What do the humans want?" Vexith asked. "Have they made any demands for surrender?" "No, Commander," Zalketh replied. "They don't seem interested in negotiation. They just keep hunting us." On the surface of Earth, in hidden command centers around the globe, human leaders were planning the next phase of their war. They had learned to fight defensively, to make their planet too dangerous for the aliens to hunt in safely. Now they were ready to take the offensive. Dr. Chen had made a breakthrough in understanding Kathvar biotechnology. Working with captured alien equipment, she had figured out how to interface human computer systems with alien biotechnology. This meant humans could potentially control Kathvar weapons and equipment. "If we can hack their systems," she explained to Rivera, "we can turn their own technology against them. Their ships, their weapons, everything they use is connected through biological networks. We can poison those networks." Rivera smiled grimly, "Like giving them a computer virus, but literally." "Exactly. But better than that, we can learn to use their own equipment. We can start fighting them with weapons as advanced as theirs." This was the breakthrough humanity needed to move from defense to offense. If they could master Kathvar technology, they could begin striking at the alien ships in orbit. They could take the fight beyond Earth's surface. Around the world, Human engineers and scientists began working to understand and replicate alien biotechnology. It was dangerous work. The living machines sometimes tried to fight back or infect their users. But humans were learning to master these risks. The first successful test came when a team in Brazil managed to get a captured Kathvar fighter craft operational. The small bioship responded to human commands and could even be modified with human technology. It was primitive compared to the aliens' larger vessels, but it proved that humans could learn to use their enemies' tools. Within weeks, human teams were operating captured alien equipment all over the planet. They used Kathvar sensors to track alien movements. They turned alien weapons against their former owners. Most importantly, they began to understand how the aliens' orbital fleet functioned. The Kathvar had made a critical error in their understanding of humanity. They had assumed that because humans were physically weaker and technologically less advanced, they were inferior in all ways. But humans had advantages the aliens had never encountered before. Humans could adapt, they could learn. They could change their thinking when old approaches stopped working. And perhaps most importantly, humans could cooperate on a scale that the individualistic Kathvar couldn't understand. Where the aliens saw a planet full of scattered primitive creatures, humans had built a unified resistance that spanned every continent. Information flowed instantly between resistance cells on opposite sides of the world. Tactical innovations developed in one city were being used by fighters everywhere within hours. The Kathvar had conquered dozens of species by exploiting their inability to coordinate effective resistance. But humanity was proving to be different. The more pressure the aliens applied, the more unified human resistance became. By the end of the first year of invasion, the situation had completely reversed from what anyone had expected. The Kathvar still controlled orbital space and many major cities, but they were no longer hunters. They had become the hunted. Human teams were actively stalking individual Kathvar warriors across the planet. They had learned to use the aliens' own senses and instincts against them. They had mastered alien technology well enough to turn it into weapons against its creators. Most importantly, they had proven that the Kathvar were not invincible. The galaxy's most feared predators could be beaten by prey that refused to stay prey. The hunt was far from over. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, it was not clear who was going to win. And that uncertainty was killing the Kathvar faster than any human weapon ever could. 1 year after the invasion began, Earth had become something that had never existed in 3,000 years of Kathvar conquest. It was a hunting ground where the prey had become more dangerous than the predators. Commander Vexith stood in his private chambers aboard the flagship, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare and hunting. His forces were losing ground every day, not to superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but to something far more disturbing. The humans had learned to think like Kathvar. But worse than that, they had learned to think better than Kathvar. The latest intelligence report lay on his biodesk, its living surface pulsing with bioluminescent text. Hunting Party 7-7 had been assigned to clear out a human stronghold in what had once been called Paris. The mission should have been routine. 30 Kathvar warriors against maybe 100 humans, hiding in underground tunnels. The entire hunting party had vanished without sending a single distress signal. When a recovery team finally found the site 3 days later, they discovered something that chilled Vex to his core. The humans hadn't just killed the hunting party. They had displayed the bodies in a pattern that showed they understood Kathvar military protocols better than some of his own officers. The arrangement was a message written in the language of predator dominance. It said clearly and unmistakably, "We know who you are. We know how you think. We are better hunters than you." Vexith had seen many species fight back when the Kathvar came for them. Some had been brave. Some had been clever. Some had even won battles against his forces. But none had ever demonstrated that they understood Kathvar psychology well enough to wage psychological warfare against them. Dr. Sarah Chen crouched in the ruins of what had once been the Louvre Museum, studying the aftermath of the Paris operation. Her team had been documenting human tactical evolution for months, and what she saw here represented a new level of sophistication. The human team that had eliminated Hunting Party 7-7 had used classic Kathvar pack hunting techniques against the aliens themselves. They had divided into small groups, surrounded their prey, and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. But they had also added elements that no Kathvar would have thought of. They used the aliens' own sensory advantages against them, her research partner Dr. James Harrison observed, examining scorch marks on the tunnel walls. The Kathvar have incredible hearing and smell, so the humans created false scent trails and sound decoys that led them exactly where they wanted them to go. Sarah nodded as she studied video footage captured by hidden cameras. The human team had moved through the tunnels like ghosts, coordinating their attack through quantum-encrypted communications that the aliens couldn't detect or intercept. They had turned the underground into a three-dimensional maze where every route led to a kill zone. "But look at this," she said, pointing to the final arrangement of alien bodies. "This isn't just tactical superiority. This is art." The humans had arranged the defeated Kathvar according to their species' own rituals of dominance. It was a message that could only be understood by someone who had studied Kathvar culture deeply. The humans were telling their enemies that they not only could defeat them, but that they understood them completely. This level of psychological warfare was spreading throughout the global resistance. Human teams were no longer content to simply kill alien hunters. They were working to break the Kathvar psychologically, to destroy their confidence and their sense of identity as apex predators. Captain Marcus Rivera commanded one of the most successful hunting teams on the planet. His group, operating out of the ruins of New York, had eliminated over 200 Kathvar warriors in the past 6 months. But more importantly, they had pioneered techniques that were being copied by resistance cells worldwide. Rivera's specialty was what he called predator stalking. His team would identify individual Kathvar warriors and follow them for weeks, learning their habits, their routes, their personal weaknesses. They would leave subtle signs that they were being watched. A scratch on a wall here, a moved object there, just enough to let the alien know it was being hunted. The psychological effect was devastating. Kathvar warriors who had once moved through human cities with confident aggression began to show signs of paranoia and fear. They would jump at shadows, waste ammunition shooting at noises, and make tactical errors that human teams were ready to exploit. "The key is patience," Rivera explained to new recruits in the underground training facility. "The Kathvar are used to quick hunts against prey that panics. They don't know how to handle being stalked over long periods by patient predators." He activated a holographic display showing the psychological profile of a typical Kathvar warrior. Their entire identity is built around being dominant predators. When that identity is threatened, they don't have psychological tools to cope with it. They become confused, angry, and most importantly, sloppy. One of the recruits, a former Marine named Johnson, raised her hand. "What about their reinforcements? Our intel suggests they've sent messages back to their home fleet." Rivera's expression darkened. "That's why we need to work faster. We need to break them completely before help arrives. If we can destroy their morale thoroughly enough, even reinforcements won't be able to save this invasion." This was the race that humanity was running. They had maybe a year, possibly 2, before massive Kathvar reinforcements arrived. In that time, they needed to prove that Earth was not worth conquering, that humans were too dangerous to hunt. Dr. Chen had been working on biological warfare tailored specifically for the Kathvar. Their biotechnology was both a strength and a weakness. Because everything they used was alive, it could be infected, poisoned, or turned against them. "I've developed 3 different biological agents," she reported to the global resistance leadership during a secure video conference. The first attacks their bioships directly, causing system failures and making them uninhabitable. The second interferes with their personal bioarmor, making it unreliable in combat. The third is the most dangerous. It's a modified virus that affects their nervous systems. The resistance leaders listened carefully as Chen explained her work. They were all exhausted men and women who had been fighting an impossible war for over a year. But for the first time since the invasion began, they were starting to believe they might actually win. "What are the risks?" asked General Morrison, the former head of the European Defense Forces. "High," Chen admitted. "The biological agents are designed to be species-specific, but we're dealing with alien biology. There's a chance they could mutate and affect other life forms on Earth. Using them would be a desperate measure." "How desperate are we?" asked another leader. Rivera answered from his position in New York. "Desperate enough. Our intelligence suggests that the Kathvar home fleet is massive. If they send everything they have, we won't be able to resist conventionally. The decision was made to prepare the biological weapons but hold them in reserve. Humanity would continue to fight with conventional tactics and psychological warfare as long as possible. The bioweapons would be a last resort if conventional resistance failed. But even as the leaders made this decision, the conventional resistance was achieving successes that no one had thought possible when the invasion began. Human teams had learned to capture and operate Kathvar spacecraft. Small groups of pilots, many of them former military aviators, were flying alien bioships in combat against their former owners. The ships were difficult to control. They responded to biological commands that human nervous systems had to learn to generate, but the results were spectacular. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were winning battles in space above Earth's atmosphere. Commander Vexith watched in disbelief as human-piloted Kathvar fighters attacked one of his scout ships. The humans flew with a reckless creativity that his own pilots couldn't match. They used maneuvers that were tactically unsound according to Kathvar doctrine, but which worked precisely because they were unexpected. "How are they controlling our bioships?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, Commander. The humans appear to have learned to interface directly with our biotechnology. They are using our own vessels against us." This was the nightmare scenario that Vexith had feared since the first reports of human resistance. If the prey could use predator tools, the natural order of the hunt was completely destroyed. Worse, the humans were modifying captured Kathvar technology with their own innovations. They had created hybrid biomechanical systems that combined alien biotechnology with human engineering. The results were often superior to pure Kathvar systems. Sub-Commander Zalketh entered the command chamber with the latest casualty reports. Her scaled face showed the strain of months of unexpected warfare. "Commander, we've lost another 12 hunting parties this week. Morale among the warriors is problematic." "Explain," Vexith hissed. "Many are refusing hunting assignments. They claim the humans have made the planet's surface too dangerous for normal operations. Some are requesting transfers off-world. This was unprecedented in Kathvar military history. Warriors who had participated in the conquest of dozens of worlds were now afraid to fight against primitive humans. The psychological damage was spreading through his forces like a plague. "What about the human resistance? Are they showing any signs of weakening?" Zalketh's silence was answer enough. If anything, human resistance was getting stronger and more sophisticated every day. They had learned to coordinate operations across the entire planet, sharing intelligence and tactics in real time. They had mastered Kathvar technology and psychology. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy hunting their former hunters. "Commander," Zalketh said quietly, "some of the warriors are saying that we should withdraw from this system." The suggestion was blasphemous. In 3,000 years of expansion, the Kathvar had never retreated from a hunting ground. They conquered or they died trying. The idea of withdrawal was against everything their species believed about itself. But as Vexith looked at the tactical displays showing human-controlled territories spreading across the planet like an infection, he had to admit that traditional Kathvar doctrine was not working against these particular prey animals. On Earth's surface, human resistance had evolved far beyond anything the original planners had imagined. What had started as scattered groups of survivors hiding from alien hunters had become a planet-wide military force that was actively hunting the aliens. The transformation was most visible in the urban battlegrounds. Cities that had been devastated by the initial Kathvar attacks had been rebuilt as elaborate hunting grounds designed to trap and kill alien hunting parties. Every building, every street, every sewer tunnel had been modified to give humans tactical advantages. In London, the Resistance had turned the underground system into a three-dimensional battlefield where humans could move unseen, while alien movements were tracked and predicted. Kathvar hunting parties that entered the city often found themselves surrounded and outnumbered before they realized they were in danger. In Tokyo, human engineers had combined alien biotechnology with advanced robotics to create autonomous hunter-killer systems that could track and eliminate Kathvar warriors without human oversight. The aliens were being hunted by their own technology turned against them. In New York, Rivera's team had established what they called hunting schools where experienced human predators taught newcomers how to track, stalk, and kill Kathvar warriors. The curriculum included alien psychology, biotechnology operation, and advanced combat tactics. But perhaps the most important development was psychological. Humans were no longer afraid of the Kathvar. A year of successful resistance had proven that the aliens could be beaten. More than that, it had proven that humans could become better hunters than their would-be conquerors. Dr. Chen had completed her analysis of captured Kathvar psychological profiles. What she found confirmed what field operatives had been reporting for months. The Kathvar are breaking down psychologically, she reported to the global leadership. Their entire culture is based on being apex predators. When that fundamental assumption is challenged, they don't have coping mechanisms. She displayed brain scans of captured Kathvar warriors, showing the progression of psychological deterioration over time in human captivity. They're developing what we would recognize as severe depression and anxiety disorders. Their sense of identity is completely dependent on their ability to dominate other species. When humans prove that they can be dominated instead, it destroys their psychological foundation. This information had strategic implications. If the Kathvar could be broken psychologically, they might withdraw from Earth voluntarily rather than face the humiliation of defeat by inferior prey. Human resistance leaders began planning operations specifically designed to maximize psychological damage to the alien forces. They would demonstrate not just that humans could fight back, but that humans were better predators than the Kathvar themselves. The message they wanted to send was clear. Earth was not a hunting ground for alien predators. It was a trap where predators came to die. As the first year of resistance ended and the second began, the situation had become completely reversed from what anyone had expected when the aliens first arrived. The Kathvar were no longer hunting humans. Humans were hunting Kathvar, and they were getting very good at it. Commander Vexith stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue and green world that should have been conquered long ago. Somewhere in the cities below, his warriors were hiding from human hunters. Somewhere in the tunnels and ruins, humans were planning their next attack against his forces. For the first time in his career, Vexith was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey. And he did not like the feeling at all. 2 years had passed since the Kathvar invasion began, and Earth had become something unprecedented in the galaxy. It was a planet where the most feared predators in known space were afraid to leave their ships. Commander Vexith had not set foot on the planet's surface in 8 months. Neither had any of his senior officers. The surface of Earth had become what military strategists called a total denial zone, our territory so dangerous to the enemy that it could not be occupied, or even safely scouted. The humans had achieved this through a combination of superior tactics, psychological warfare, and something the Kathvar had never encountered before: genuine creativity in the art of hunting. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the Pentagon, now converted into humanity's central command for xenobiology research. Around her, teams of scientists worked with captured alien technology that they had not only learned to operate, but to improve upon. Status report, she called to her lead researcher, Dr. James Harrison. We've successfully reverse-engineered 90% of their biotechnology, Harrison replied, not looking up from the living computer interface he was working with. More importantly, we've learned to modify it. Our hybrid systems are consistently outperforming pure Kathvar technology. This was the breakthrough that had changed everything. Human engineers and scientists had discovered that alien biotechnology could be enhanced with human innovations. The resulting hybrid systems were more capable than anything either species had created alone. Human-modified Kathvar weapons were more accurate and had longer range. Human-adapted alien sensors could detect Kathvar movements from greater distances. Most importantly, human-controlled bioships were faster and more maneuverable than their original versions. But the real advantage was strategic. The Kathvar designed their technology for hunting weaker prey. Humans were modifying that same technology for hunting the Kathvar themselves. Captain Marcus Rivera walked through the corridors of what had once been New York City Hall, now serving as the command center for North American hunting operations. The building hummed with activity as teams planned operations that would have been impossible 2 years earlier. "Sir," called Lieutenant Johnson, one of his most experienced hunters, "we have confirmation on the orbital patrol schedules. The Kathvar are following predictable patterns now." Rivera smiled grimly. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. The aliens had become so defensive that they were prioritizing safety over tactical effectiveness. Their orbital patrols followed regular schedules that could be predicted and exploited. "Prepare Hunter Team Alpha," he ordered. "We're going to space." This would be the first human-initiated attack on Kathvar orbital positions. For 2 years, humans had been limited to defensive operations on the planet's surface. Now they were ready to take the fight to the enemy's strongholds in space. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had attempted before. Using captured and modified Kathvar bioships, a team of human pilots would infiltrate the alien orbital fleet and capture one of their major vessels. If successful, it would prove that humans could threaten the Kathvar anywhere in the solar system. The bioship that would carry them into space was a hybrid creation that demonstrated how far human technology had advanced. The basic structure was a captured Kathvar scout vessel, but it had been extensively modified with human innovations. Human engineers had replaced the alien's simple bio-neural interface with a sophisticated quantum computer system that could process information faster than the original biological systems. They had enhanced the ship's bioarmor with human-developed materials that were lighter and stronger than the alien originals. Most importantly, they had modified the ship's stealth capabilities. The Kathvar bioships were naturally difficult to detect, but human modifications had made this particular vessel virtually invisible to alien sensors. Dr. Chen had provided the final piece of the puzzle, a biological weapon specifically designed to incapacitate Kathvar crew members without killing them. The humans wanted prisoners, not corpses. They needed intelligence about the alien home fleet and their plans for Earth. As Rivera's team prepared for launch, similar operations were being planned around the globe. Human resistance had evolved into something the Kathvar had never faced, a coordinated planetary military force capable of taking offensive action. In orbit above Earth, Subcommander Zalketh reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing despair. Her scouts were reporting human activities that made no sense according to everything the Kathvar knew about primitive species. The humans were not just surviving the invasion, they were thriving. Their population was actually growing in some areas as they consolidated into fortified cities that the Kathvar could not safely approach. Their technology was advancing rapidly as they mastered and improved upon captured alien equipment. Most disturbing of all, they were showing signs of preparing for offensive operations beyond their planet's surface. "Commander," she called to Vex over the bioship's communication system, "I'm reading unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. The humans appear to be activating some kind of launch system." Vexith's response was immediate and concerned. "Elaborate. Multiple locations are showing power buildups consistent with spacecraft launch preparations. Sir, I think they're planning to come after us." The idea was so alien to Kathvar thinking that it took Vexith several moments to process it. In 3,000 years of conquest, they had never faced prey that attempted to carry the fight beyond their home planet. The very concept violated everything the Kathvar understood about the natural order of predator and prey. But as he studied the sensor readings, Vexith had to accept the impossible. The humans were preparing to launch spacecraft. They were planning to hunt the Kathvar in space itself. Rivera's bioship launched from a hidden facility in the ruins of Colorado Springs. The launch was silent and nearly invisible. The hybrid craft rose through Earth's atmosphere like a living shadow, undetected by Kathvar sensors. As they approached orbital altitude, Rivera felt a mixture of excitement and terror. No human had been this far from Earth since the invasion began. But more than that, they were about to attempt something that no other species in the galaxy had ever successfully done: hunt the Kathvar in their own element. "Target acquired," reported his pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, a former NASA astronaut who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. Kathvar patrol vessel, bearing 27 Mark V. Single ship isolated from the main fleet. Perfect. They had chosen their target carefully. A scout ship operating alone, far enough from the main fleet that its disappearance might not be immediately noticed. "Remember," Rivera told his team, "we need prisoners and intelligence. Dr. Chen's bioweapon should incapacitate the crew without permanent damage. Our job is to capture the ship and bring it back to Earth." The attack was swift and precise. The hybrid bioship approached the Kathvar scout from its sensor blind spot, using stealth modifications that made it invisible until it was too late for the aliens to react. Dr. Chen's biological weapon worked exactly as designed. Released into the target ship's atmosphere, It quickly incapacitated the Kathvar crew without triggering their ship's self-destruct systems. Within an hour, Rivera's team had captured their first Kathvar spacecraft in orbit. More importantly, they had proven that humans could successfully hunt the aliens anywhere in the solar system. The captured scout ship provided intelligence that changed everything. The ship's biocomputer contained detailed information about the Kathvar home fleet, including the disturbing news that massive reinforcements were already en route to Earth. But the intelligence also revealed something else. The Kathvar were losing ships throughout their empire. The reports from Earth had spread through their military hierarchy, and other species they had been hunting were beginning to fight back using human tactics. Dr. Harrison studied the captured data with growing excitement. "Sarah, look at this. The Kathvar aren't just having problems here. Reports from other systems show increasing resistance among species they've been hunting for years." Chen reviewed the intelligence with amazement. "They're copying our methods. Other species are learning from what we've done here and applying it to their own situations." This was an unexpected development that could change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. If the Kathvar Empire was facing resistance on multiple fronts, it would limit their ability to concentrate forces against Earth. But it also meant that humanity had become something more than just another species fighting for survival. They had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide rebellion against the Kathvar. The success of Rivera's orbital mission led to a rapid expansion of human space operations. Within weeks, human-piloted hybrid spacecraft were conducting regular raids against Kathvar orbital positions. The aliens found themselves under attack in the one place they had considered safe. Commander Vexith was forced to withdraw his fleet to a higher orbit and implement defensive formations that severely limited their operational effectiveness. For the first time in Kathvar military history, they were conducting purely defensive operations against primitive prey. The psychological impact on his forces was catastrophic. Kathvar warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were now afraid to approach a single planet. Morale had collapsed to the point where some crews were requesting transfers to other hunting expeditions, rather than continue fighting humans. "Commander," Zalketh reported during their daily briefing, "I've received confirmation that the home fleet has dispatched reinforcements. A full conquest armada is en route to our position." Vexith felt a mixture of relief and shame. Relief that he would finally have the forces necessary to crush human resistance. Shame that he had been the first Kathvar commander in history to require such massive reinforcements to subdue a single species. "Estimated arrival time?" 6 months, Commander. The armada includes over 200 bioships and 50,000 warriors, more than enough to sterilize the entire planet if necessary. The news of incoming reinforcements spread quickly through human intelligence networks. Dr. Chen and her research teams analyzed the captured data to understand exactly what humanity would be facing. The numbers were overwhelming. The reinforcement fleet was larger than the entire combined military forces that Earth had possessed before the invasion. Even with all their technological advances and tactical innovations, humanity could not hope to defeat such a massive force in conventional battle. But Captain Rivera had a different idea. "We don't fight them," he explained to the global resistance leadership during an emergency conference. "We make them not want to fight us." Rivera's plan was audacious and terrifying in its implications. Instead of waiting for the reinforcements to arrive, humanity would take the fight to the Kathvar home system. They would use captured and modified bioships to strike at the heart of the alien empire. "It's a suicide mission," protested General Morrison. "No," Rivera replied, "it's a message. We show them that nowhere in the galaxy is safe from us. We prove that hunting humans means becoming hunted ourselves no matter where they go." Dr. Chen had been working on modifications that would make such a mission possible. Using captured Kathvar navigation data, human engineers had figured out how to modify bioships for faster-than-light travel. The resulting hybrid vessels could reach the Kathvar home system within weeks. "The bioweapons I've developed can be deployed on a massive scale," she explained. "We don't need to destroy their entire civilization. We just need to make them understand that continuing to hunt humans will result in the collapse of their empire." The plan that emerged was unprecedented in its scope and daring. A fleet of human-modified bioships would travel to the Kathvar home system and demonstrate that humanity could strike at the heart of their empire. They would prove that humans were not prey to be hunted, but predators capable of hunting their hunters across the galaxy. As preparations began for the most dangerous mission in human history, word of the plan spread through the resistance networks. Volunteers came forward from every nation on Earth. They were willing to travel across the galaxy to ensure that their species would never again be hunted by alien predators. The message they planned to deliver to the Kathvar was simple and terrifying. Earth was not a hunting ground. It was the home of hunters who would follow their prey anywhere in the galaxy. Commander Vex received the intercepted human communications with disbelief that quickly turned to horror. The humans were planning to attack the Kathvar homeworld itself. The idea was so insane, so contrary to every natural law of predator and prey, that his mind initially refused to accept it. But as he studied the intelligence reports, he realized that the humans were serious. They had the technology, the knowledge, and apparently the will to carry out such an attack. For the first time in his long career, Vex began to understand that his species might have made a terrible mistake when they chose to hunt humanity. The prey had not just learned to fight back. They had learned to become apex predators themselves. And now they were coming for the hunters. 3 years after the Kathvar invasion began, Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the hybrid bioship Revenge, watching the stars shift from points of light to streaming lines as they entered faster-than-light travel. Behind him, a fleet of 27 human-modified vessels followed, the same course toward the heart of the Kathvar Empire. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity remained a single species fighting for survival on one world, or became something new, the galaxy's apex predator. The journey to the Kathvar home system took 18 days. During that time, Rivera's fleet remained in constant communication with Earth, sharing intelligence and coordinating their attack with defensive preparations back home. The massive Kathvar reinforcement fleet was still 3 months away from Earth, giving humanity a narrow window to strike first. Dr. Sarah Chen worked constantly during the journey, finalizing the biological weapons that would make their mission possible. She had created something unprecedented, a virus specifically designed to attack Kathvar biotechnology. It would spread through their living ships and weapons, making them unreliable and eventually unusable. The beauty of it, she explained to Rivera, is that it doesn't kill them outright. It just makes it impossible for them to function as a military force. Their ships will fail, their weapons will malfunction, their armor will stop working. They'll be helpless. But the virus was only part of the plan. The real goal was psychological. Humanity wanted to prove to the Kathvar that their empire was vulnerable, that their homeworlds could be reached and attacked by the very prey they had been hunting. The Kathvar home system contained 12 planets, 3 of which supported the vast biocities where their species had evolved. These worlds had never been attacked by another species. For 3,000 years, they had been the untouchable heart of a galactic empire built on hunting and conquest. When Rivera's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, they found themselves facing defensive forces that had been designed to repel invasion fleets, not small groups of modified bioships that registered as friendly vessels on Kathvar sensors. "We're invisible to them," reported Lieutenant Kim from the pilot's station. "Their own sensors think we're part of their fleet." This was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. The Kathvar had never faced an enemy that could use their own technology against them. Their defensive systems were not designed to detect modified bioships piloted by former prey species. The attack began simultaneously on all 3 homeworlds. Human bioships, indistinguishable from Kathvar vessels to enemy sensors, penetrated the orbital defenses and began deploying Dr. Chen's biological weapons into the atmosphere. The virus spread quickly through the living infrastructure of the Kathvar cities. Bio-buildings began to malfunction. Transportation systems failed. Communication networks collapsed. Within hours, the technological foundation of Kathvar civilization was crumbling. But Rivera's mission went beyond biological warfare. He wanted to deliver a message that would end the Kathvar threat to Earth forever. On the primary homeworld, Rivera's team captured the Grand Hunting Hall, the ceremonial center where the Kathvar had displayed trophies from 3,000 years of conquest. The hall contained artifacts from hundreds of extinct species, each one representing a successful hunt that had ended with the complete destruction of an intelligent civilization. Standing in the center of the hall, surrounded by the remains of countless extinct species, Rivera activated a transmission that would be broadcast throughout the Kathvar Empire. My name is Marcus Rivera, he began, and I represent the human species of Earth. You came to our world believing we were prey to be hunted. You were wrong. The transmission showed images of the chaos spreading through the Kathvar homeworlds as their biotechnology failed. It displayed the human fleet operating freely in the heart of their supposedly invulnerable empire. For 3,000 years, you have hunted intelligent species to extinction. You believed you were apex predators, that no prey could threaten you. Today we prove that you were wrong about that too. Rivera gestured to the trophies surrounding him. Every species represented in this hall was destroyed because they could not adapt quickly enough to survive your hunts. But humans are different. We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to win. The transmission continued with footage from Earth showing human resistance operations. Kathvar warriors fleeing from human hunting teams. Alien bioships being piloted by human crews. The systematic reversal of the invasion that had turned the predators into prey. We have learned to hunt you on your own world, using your own weapons, in your own ships. We have proven that there is nowhere in the galaxy you can go where we cannot follow, nowhere you can hide where we cannot find you. Rivera paused, letting the implications sink in before delivering his ultimatum. You have two choices. You can withdraw from Earth immediately and never return, or you can face the complete destruction of your empire. We have shown you that we can reach your homeworlds. We have shown you that we can cripple your technology. If you force us to, we will show you that we can hunt your species to extinction just as you have hunted others. The transmission ended with a final image, humans and representatives of other species that the Kathvar had been hunting, standing together in the grand hunting hall. The message was clear. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide alliance against Kathvar expansion. Commander Vexth received the transmission aboard his flagship in Earth orbit. As he watched human forces operating freely on the Kathvar homeworlds, he felt something he had never experienced before: complete helplessness. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the greatest hunters in the galaxy into hunted animals cowering in their own homes. They had proven that no species, no matter how advanced or dangerous, was immune to becoming prey if they chose the wrong target. Status report from the homeworlds, he requested, though he already knew what the answer would be. Complete system failure, Commander, Zalketh reported. The biological weapon the humans deployed has infected our entire biotechnological infrastructure. Our ships are failing, our cities are going dark, our weapons are becoming inoperative. And the reinforcement fleet? They've received the human transmission. The Admiralty is reconsidering their orders. Vexth understood. The Kathvar High Command was facing the collapse of their home worlds and the possible extinction of their species. Continuing the hunt for one troublesome planet was no longer a priority. Commander, Zalketh continued quietly, I'm receiving surrender requests from hunting fleets throughout the Empire. The humans have shared their biological weapon with other species. Kathvar forces are being attacked everywhere. This was the end of everything the Kathvar had built over 3 millennia. Their empire of conquest was crumbling as their former prey turned their own tactics against them. On Earth, Dr. Chen monitored the global communications networks as reports came in from across the galaxy. Species that had been hunted by the Kathvar for generations were suddenly free, their oppressors fleeing in broken bioships that could barely function. It's working, she reported to the global resistance leadership. The Kathvar Empire is collapsing. Their fleets are retreating from dozens of systems. But Chen knew that the real victory was not just the defeat of one predatory species. Humanity had proven something that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Intelligence and adaptability could triumph over any amount of natural or artificial predatory advantage. The species that had thought they were the ultimate hunters had been taught that there was always something higher on the food chain. Rivera's fleet returned to Earth 6 weeks later, their mission accomplished beyond anyone's expectations. They had not just defended their home world. They had ended a 3,000-year reign of terror that had consumed hundreds of intelligent species. The Kathvar reinforcement fleet never arrived at Earth. Instead, it was recalled to help with the crisis on the homeworlds. Within months, the remaining Kathvar forces had withdrawn from Earth orbit entirely, leaving behind only scattered groups of individuals who requested asylum rather than return to their collapsing empire. But humanity's role in the galaxy was just beginning. As word of their victory spread, representatives from dozens of species made contact with Earth. Some were former Kathvar prey seeking alliance and protection. Others were potential threats that wanted to test themselves against the species that had defeated the galaxy's apex predators. Dr. Chen found herself leading a new kind of research program, studying not just how to defend against alien threats, but how to prevent the rise of another species like the Kathvar. Her work focused on creating technologies and strategies that could be shared with peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The goal, she explained to the newly formed Galactic Defense Council, is to make sure that no species ever again faces what we faced when the Kathvar arrived. We want to create a galaxy where intelligence and cooperation triumph over predation and conquest. Captain Rivera, now promoted to Admiral, commanded Earth's first interstellar defense fleet. His ships patrolled the galaxy not as conquerors but as protectors, ensuring that species like the Kathvar could never again rise to threaten peaceful civilizations. The irony was not lost on him. Humanity had become the galaxy's apex predator by refusing to think like predators. They had won by protecting others rather than hunting them, by cooperating rather than conquering. 5 years after the invasion began, Earth hosted the first Galactic Peace Conference attended by representatives from over 200 species. The goal was to establish principles that would prevent future wars of extinction and create a framework for peaceful contact between species. The conference was held in the ruins of the Grand Hunting Hall, now rebuilt as the memorial to extinct species. Each of the species that the Kathvar had destroyed was remembered with a monument, and representatives of surviving Kathvar populations participated in the ceremonies. Former Commander Vex, now serving as a representative of the reformed Kathvar remnant, spoke to the assembly about the lessons his species had learned. "We believed that strength meant the ability to destroy others," he said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine remorse. "The humans taught us that true strength means the ability to protect others. We spent 3,000 years proving we could hunt. They spent 3 years proving they could save." The conference established the Galactic Protection Protocols, a set of principles that would govern contact between species and provide frameworks for mutual defense. Humanity took the lead in implementing these protocols, but the goal was to create a system that no single species could dominate. Dr. Chen, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiologist, presented the final report of the conference to the assembled delegates. "The Kathvar invasion taught us that the galaxy can be a dangerous place," she said. "But it also taught us that intelligence, cooperation, and the refusal to give up can overcome any threat. We humans were prey for exactly 3 years. We have chosen to spend the rest of our existence ensuring that no other species has to experience what we experienced." The audience, representing hundreds of worlds and thousands of years of galactic history, rose in unanimous applause. As the conference ended and delegates returned to their home worlds, Rivera stood on the balcony of the rebuilt memorial, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the galaxy, not hunting for prey but protecting species that needed protection. The great hunt was over. The Kathvar had learned that there were no easy prey in a galaxy, where intelligence and determination could overcome any advantage. Humanity had learned that their greatest strength was not their ability to destroy their enemies, but their willingness to protect their friends. In the end, the hunters had become the hunted, the prey had become the protectors, and the galaxy had become a safer place for intelligence to flourish. The stars shined down on a galaxy where the age of predators was ending, and the age of guardians had begun. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet, whose inhabitants had refused to accept their fate as prey, and had instead chosen to become the shepherds of galactic peace. The hunt was over. The protection had begun, and humanity would never let another species face extinction alone.